basically this girl that I was seeing at the
It's okay. You
time.
don't have to share all the details. You don't have to
I know,
share,
right?
You don't have to incriminate yourself beyond just.
So welcome to Anatomy of a Hustler. I'm Jenise.
And I'm Cope.
And today we have the pleasure of interviewing somebody who doesn't really get to be seen at the forefront of his business, but we brought him out tonight to interview Damian Lynch of Yellow Brick Group. Welcome, Damian.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Glad to be here.
Awesome. So I wanted to, celebrate I think this is was your fifth annual Our Street Market.
Yeah, we started in 2018. We did 2 in 2018, 1 in 2019, and then 1 in 2022. So yeah, this was our fifth one.
Congratulations, by the way, on launching your fifth one, and it's 2023 officially. How does it feel to come off of that event?
It's incredible. This was our most successful by far. We introduced a few new elements this year. Before this year, the event was completely free. You could just walk up and walk in, which was really cool. This year, we introduced tickets at the front door, which was something that, it was still accessible in the sense that we actually released free tickets at first, and then we ratcheted it up like $5 tickets, $10, and then it was $15 at the door. So still very, very accessible, but it was one of those things where you just don't know how your crowd is going to react once you introduce something new. So that was really cool to still see the place packed out. We still did about 20,000 people.
Wow.
Throughout the day. And it was, to put on an event like that with no big issues is always a big plus.
Seriously.
So you're clenching your teeth during the whole duration of the event, but by the time it's over.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The 72 hours leading up to any event are always like, shit, is this going to work? Something's going to go wrong.
Yeah.
You got to just be prepared for it all.
Yeah.
What do you think was the biggest oh shit that you guys had to get through on that one?
There's always every single event, like large scale event that I've ever been a part of. There's always something you cannot predict that's going to happen. This time around, honestly, it didn't happen until afterwards. We were caught off guard. One of our vendors, this is kind of an in-house thing, but one of our vendors broke some rules in terms of just cannabis consumption on site.
Got it.
And kind of taking a little bit more liberty than they should have, and being a little loud and out there with what they were doing. So that came back to bite us a little bit, but it's something that we're learning from, and we're going to tighten up moving forward. But that's a really good question. One thing that happened was this guy tried to sneak in through one of our emergency exit gates, and he ended up pulling a knife on our security guard, and our security guard disarmed him, brought him to the ground, and he in that scuffle, the guy ended up cutting himself with his own knife, and he was just a mess. And luckily no serious injuries or anything like that, but that happened in the first 30 minutes. So
right.
It's
just get it out
light
early.
outside.
Get it out on the
It was
way.
like 5
Dude,
p.m.,
it's
right?
$15 to get in. If you had just given the security guard $10, he might have just let him in. Yeah. You know what I mean? You know how that goes. So.
I know it all too well.
Yeah.
I know it all too well. There's been nights where security has made more money than I have on parties,
Right? You're like, dude, seriously? $100? So can't blame those guys though, honestly.
No.
It's can't be too mad.
You said first 30 minutes, everything else went off without a hitch.
Right.
Yeah, everything else went off really smoothly. I'm trying to think. This is boring stuff, but little stuff that came up in the last minute. I guess one thing was the trash protocols for events like this. As you guys see when you go out and about, when you go to any establishment, there are 3 different trash cans: compost, recycling, and then just general trash.
Yeah.
And you have to put your trash in the right receptacle. They started finding businesses in Sacramento and California, I think, in the last year or so if you don't do it correctly. So that was a little twist. Oh, actually, there were 2 things. That was a big twist coming into this year, was we had to revamp our entire trash plan.
Right.
To have 3 receptacles at every single trash location, 1 for each different type of trash. We had to have it identified, and that was I mean, it sounds simple, but it's like it's more trash cans, it's more staff, more oversight to make sure you're doing it correctly. We had to draft an entire plan that we had to submit to the city. So that was sort of an unforeseen kind of thing we had to tackle going into it. And then the second thing I would say is, I forget the law code or whatever, but it's like AB 2568 or something like that. It's this new law that was implemented post COVID. As you guys can probably remember, during COVID, there were a lot of active shooter situations around the country at large events where, just large public events were getting targeted by crazy people.
Right.
And so California passed a law that requires any event over 10,000 people that's open to the public to draft like an in-depth security plan that goes through protocols, procedures, and stuff like that in case anything were to happen. So that was stressful. And then the trash stuff. I just thought of the one thing that actually did catch us really off guard the day of, where we had to really hard pivot. You guys have been to the night market?
I went to this one, yeah.
So there's in our footprint is regional transit. They have like their offices right there, right there on our street, and we typically use their parking lot to house our porta potties. It's like a porta potty city. We just because we kind of know like that they don't want anything crazy happening in there, so we put something in there that's kind of very low barrier, low risk. Put porta potties in there. Well, we didn't get the right approval before the event happened. No. So day of, literally that morning, I mean, we had 40, 50 porta potties placed already in their parking space and hand wash stations and all that stuff. And then I don't know who saw it or who caught wind of it, but it went up the chain. Next thing you know, I'm on the phone with somebody from Regional Transit and they're screaming at me about these porta potties. And I'm just like, really? Like, they're porta potties, relax, like calm down. And by the way, we did get an approval, it's not from the right person. And we've done this before. Every year before this, we put these porta potties here. So we had to like tell our team, hey guys, we have to pick all these porta potties back up and move them, find a new location like the morning of. So that was stressful and just kind of seemed a little bit unnecessary. And they called the cops, and I remember a cop pulled up and he was like, hey,
move your porta
I'm here,
potties.
but like, I can't do anything. He's like, this isn't a legal issue. This is like a permitting issue. So he's like, I don't really care. You can leave them if you want.
Shout out to the Karens of Sacramento. Jesus,
yeah. So, that was a little fork in our situation.
So you just explained like security plans, being really good at trash plans, and then porta potty plans. When you were growing up, did you ever imagine that that's what your life is going to be, what your job, what you're getting paid to do was?
No, had no clue.
So I think people who don't know who you are, if they just heard everything that you did for this big event, I don't think they would know exactly who you are and what you do. Yeah. Could you explain a little bit about who you are, the company you run, and why you're so involved with Our Street Market?
Yeah. Yeah, the first part of your question is I couldn't have seen it, but I think my mom probably could have. She always says like, there's this line when I was really young, and I think my mom and dad were the kind of to always have like friends and family over, and we'd just have like little parties at the house. And my mom said one day, I just kept asking her like, when's the next party, Mom? Like, when's the next? I didn't even know what to call it. I didn't know it was called a party. I was just trying to explain what it was. Like, Mom, when are we doing that again? When are like people coming over playing cards and like barbecuing? And she remembers like telling, are you talking about like the party that we had? And so she's like, from then I probably could have seen that like this is where you were headed. But long story short, I mean, at 18, I graduated high school, obviously, and went to a really good high school and had a really good education coming up. Thankfully to my parents, and at 18, it was the foot of it was the recession. All the businesses around me were getting closed up. All the businesses I knew since I was a kid in my neighborhood were getting closed up. Friends were losing their houses. It was a crazy time. And I remember a distinct moment when I was working at Foot Locker in Art and Fair Mall. Again, I'm like 18.
Shout out to Art and Fair.
Shout out Art and Fair. was like 17, 18, graduating high school, and there were graduates from Berkeley working the floor with me, and because nobody can get a job at the time.
Yeah.
Like the joke at the time was like a degree can get you a job at Starbucks, you know? So at the same time that I was supposed to be going off to college and all that, the world was kind of crumbling. And so I like scored almost perfect on my SATs. Like I should have went to college. I had the grades for it and all that, but something was just like not right. And I'm like, I don't really see the vision that society is saying I need to go down. Like,
interesting.
That's
like
still
why
relevant
go
today.
get a college degree right now? I mean, I should have, I could have, and all that. And I got close. Actually, I'm like a semester away. But long story
you
short,
need to fall back. I guess you got to play.
Yeah.
If the porta potty issues get too much, you know, you
Right.
can always fall back.
I was so just kind of not fed up with school, but just I felt really like I was really good at school. So I didn't feel like I needed to go to college. I'm like, I can go to any class and get a good grade. I don't feel like I'm proving anything to anyone except for other people.
Interesting.
Anyways, I read Steve Jobs' autobiography, which really set me off on, I think, the path that I'm on. It really inspired me.
This is at 18 you picked that book up?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, well, 19, I think.
Okay.
So,
I mean,
so
still young to seek out that type of knowledge and glean wisdom from.
Yeah. I mean, only thing I knew at 18 was that I knew how to learn. I didn't really know anything. I didn't know anything. That's what I realized when I turned 18 and the financial recession hit, was that I'm like, I don't actually know anything. Like,
You
I've
learned
gotten
a lot.
You
good
had the
grades.
scholastic
Yeah.
career, but not
Yeah.
knowledge, right?
I know how to learn. I know how to sit in an environment and absorb knowledge and then regurgitate it back. Like I did really well in school, so that was easy for me. But I just knew that I needed a different challenge. I needed something different. And school wasn't it. Again, graduates from Berkeley working the floor with me. So I had friends from high school that Tony and Robbie and the group that we know, who we started HOF, Hall of Fame here in Sacramento, and legendary house parties and warehouse parties and all that stuff. But those guys were very different from the group that I was like normally used to hanging out with. So I kind of was a jock in high school. I like played sports. Like that was sports and academics were my thing. So I hung out with I kind of joke like I grew up in the locker room since I was a kid. Just my cousins, my family, like I just grew up in a locker room. So in a locker room, the topics of discussion are very limited to like girls and music and like just bullshit, right?
Yeah.
Like you're just kind of
Very
shooting.
testosterone fueled.
Yeah, very testosterone filled. Like you're not really talking about anything in depth or of substance. So when I graduated high school, I kind of gravitated, even though I came from that world of like jocks and athletes, like my friends who weren't jocks and weren't athletes were the people that I gravitated towards because they just were talking about different stuff. They were talking about like color palettes and like clothing silhouettes and like designers and shoes and like art and just different stuff that I wasn't totally native to. And I found that interesting, and I just made myself more and more and imbued myself into that world a little bit more. And they're the ones who actually got me thinking in terms of like entrepreneurship and business. Tony and these guys would be talking about like, let's be millionaires and like, let's go do crazy stuff and start companies and businesses.
That's so good,
and that world was completely sort of foreign to me. And so that's where I gravitated to. And because I found it interesting and I found it as something like I was just totally foreign to. Long story short, at 18, like as I was going into 19, I knew that I kind of spent my first year out of high school just partying, just partying hard with my friends. And we did start HOF in that time, but I just felt like I needed more. So I went to the Air Force. I come from a military family, so kind of natural for me to just say, hey, look, I mean, you got to imagine I did really well in school. I was supposed to go off to college, didn't. A year after high school, I'm just partying now. Like a year goes by and I've just partied, all my classmates and my peers have now finished their first year in college. People that I know I'm smarter than. And like they're finishing their first year. Yeah. And they're finishing their first year in college. And I'm like, haven't finished. I've dropped out of every class, you know, I'm just like partying with my friends and shit. And so I go off to the military, and really that was where I think I honed in on really wanting to like own my own business and do my own thing. Again, that was where I read Steve Jobs. So like as I dedicated myself, the military actually taught me that I never wanted to work for anybody. You know?
If someone barking orders at you was like the immediate, like, that's the last thing I want to be doing.
Dude, it's the least merit-based environment that you could be in.
Right.
The people in charge of you are only in charge of you because they've been there longer.
Yeah.
Yep.
They didn't do anything. They didn't like kill some project or sign some client or something to like get them there. They've just been there longer. Right. So you end up with this leadership layer that just is incompetent, and I'm in that environment, and I was just like, oh, hell no, like I can't do this.
But you didn't waste all of your time in the military, right?
No, I went from partying all the time to being in my dorm and just by myself with no friends in Utah. So it was a complete 180. Mm-hmm. The good news is that my dorm was subscribed to every business magazine under the sun. So like Fast Company, Entrepreneur, Inc., I can't remember all of them, but there's like 6 of them that we were subscribed to. So every single month in the dorm room, they would drop off a new edition of each of these magazines, and I would take them back to my room and I'd read them front to cover, like take notes, highlights. I went from like partying on a Friday night to just reading, you know?
Yep.
Several of these I read multiple times. And that was where I really gained the confidence, because in these magazines, I was reading about normal, everyday people who were starting businesses and having success. And that's where I really started to dream. Like, oh man, I was like, you know, if these guys can do it, like they're no smarter than me. They're no whatever, you know. I was just like, they did it. And that was when I think I really kind of like was like, okay.
Right.
And then, I mean, I'll just be candid. I ended up getting removed from the Air Force.
Are you sure you want to put that on the podcast?
I mean, what are they going to do? Come after him now?
It's been a long
get
time.
back
I mean,
in there.
This is your life.
I think
Yes,
my mom
go
knows
for
now
it.
the truth. But, you know, I took...
Well, Mom, if you didn't know, we apologize.
Yeah. I've never really told my mom this, to be honest. Never like confessed it, but I think she knows. Yeah, I took some of my partying habits with me. Not really, though. I mean, honestly, basically this girl that I was seeing at the time.
It's okay. You don't have to share all the details. You don't have to
I know,
share,
right?
You don't have to incriminate yourself
Long
beyond
story
just
Long story short, girl
the
that I was seeing
inspiration.
in Sacramento comes to visit me, and you might have known her actually, Jade. I don't know. Anyway,
He's like
shout
calling
out Jade.
himself out. I'm
I
trying
know.
to stop you.
He's like, abort.
We party, have a crazy night. I black out, get back to base. I'm underage. I'm 19, and they
And you're
catch
supposed to be
me.
at base before curfew.
Yeah, there's like
Oh,
a curfew.
100%.
I don't run a past curfew, and I'm faded. And I'm 19, so got in trouble. And then
But you made it home.
Huh?
You made it home after that.
We made it home. Yeah, we made it home.
I mean, back to Sacramento.
Oh yeah, well yeah,
Both ways.
yeah, exactly. Well, so basically what happened was the recession actually followed me to the Air Force, because what happened was Congress came down with a bunch of budget cuts, and it was like military wide. So at each base they were letting people go, and at my base it was like 200 airmen, 200 of us were leaving, and so. They basically just couldn't afford to employ us. But because it's the military, they can't call it a layoff. They call it a rollback. So they called me into their office one day and were like, hey, you know, that leadership called me in and said, hey, you know, they basically compiled a list of airmen. At the top of the list were airmen that hadn't been in that long and had gotten in trouble.
Ooh.
I hadn't been in that long, and I had been in trouble. They had me in AA classes, actually.
Wow.
They put me in like AA classes after this. So anyway, let me drink some of my wine.
Yeah.
That's right. Cheers to that. Cheers to that. Because the origin story is real. Like getting to hear some of these elements, because I got to see some of it, you know, by proxy, just because we were in similar fields doing similar things, just kind of under different labels.
He paved the way actually for a lot of our
I've heard the
partying.
legend.
He
I get
what do they
far
call
too
it?
much
He was an
credit.
enabler. Him
get
and his
far
friends
too
were
much
buying
credit.
us the alcohol.
I'll
You know,
just
I knew what the party needed. I knew the elements of what the vibe was, and you guys definitely stood out from the crowd in a lot of ways, in a lot of really good ways. So you leave and come back, and then I know it's HOF, but it just rolls off the tongue now. You know,
Hoff
you guys are
does.
used to
I call
Hoff.
it Hoff.
You're right. Was that like the immediate, like, oh shit, I'm going to take this serious? Or what was that for you when you got out?
Yeah, so they called me in, said you're going home. Actually, they gave me an out to go. Like the Air Force was laying people off, but the Army and the Marines were actually taking people. So,
Shit.
as you can imagine, like, I mean, we are on kind of the back end of the Iraq War too. So,
Yeah.
you know, trying to go Marines or Army was just like asking to go to the
Right.
front lines and actually see combat.
Right.
So I didn't do that. I was like, send me home, which they did. And by a caveat though, they did say, hey, you're going to get everything that you would have gotten, all of your benefits that you would have gotten had you stayed off 4 years, you're going to get. So like,
that's cool.
It's going to be a clean slate. Like you're going to get honorable discharge and all that. So it was a good deal.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, all my friends who didn't get that, when I came back to base, they were like, I was like, yeah, I'm going home. I'm getting all my benefits. Like they were mad. Like what? Like you get to
send
go
me
home. Yeah. Like you get to keep all your benefits and go home early. Like it actually worked out. But anyway, so I get home and yeah, I definitely, you know, the idea of entrepreneurship had sort of calcified in my mind of, I mean, really what I saw, and by the way, on my way out of the military, it's like a 30-day, 45-day out processing period. So they make you go to all these classes and seminars and just, you know,
With the purpose of like trying to get you prepared
trying
for
to get
civilian life.
exactly
Yeah.
transferring from military life to civilian life. They try to get you fully set up, right? So as I'm going through that process, I'm seeing people who are in their 40s and 50s, had careers in the military, who were getting laid off because of this, and they had kids and homes and all this stuff. And I mean, I was looking at like 45-year-old men who were just like broken, you know, and like their life was ending, defeated. I was like 19, like, cool, I'm going home.
Yeah,
This
there's a world
doesn't
of possibilities for me.
like, this is all good for me. But I say that to say what I saw was I just saw men in a position that I knew I didn't want to be in, and I knew that I needed to you know. Basically what I did at 18, 19 around that time, I just wiped my mind of everything that I thought I knew. And I just really like restarted my educational process. So it became clear to me within like 10 minutes of research that, and reading and all the stuff I was exposed to, like, I mean, it sucks to say it this way, but like when you dig into the business books and entrepreneurs and stuff like that, like they kind of laugh at employees, you know, they kind of laugh at W-2 people. Like they just do. They're like, it just became like very obvious to me that the only way to financial freedom was ownership of something. Like that was the only way that I saw. And so, yeah, I came back to California with sort of a renewed spirit of like, I want to work for myself. I'm 19. I'm going to give myself, basically I made a deal with myself and said, you know, I'm going to give myself until 30. If I don't figure it out by 30, fuck it. I'll go get a job. Like I'll go to
the state is always hiring.
I'll go work for the state. I'll go get the $80,000 a year job and, you know, get my 2 years of vacation. And
That's really
I'll
good
do
and
it.
really generous. I think people make like 5-year plans or they feel like they have to hit certain milestones within a year of their business, but you
Yeah.
gave yourself a good 9 years, 10 years almost.
yeah. I just felt like, again, I know that I know how to learn. I didn't really know anything other than that at that age. And I just knew like, man, I can figure this out. I can figure anything out in 10 years.
Right.
Like, you know,
The
you
gall.
give me 10
Right.
years.
The
like,
audacity, yes.
I can
You need
figure it
that.
out.
You need that.
Like, I don't need a nice car. I don't think I would buy one pair of jeans every year from like 20 to like 26.
That's your Steve Jobs coming out.
Yeah,
Your
real
Steve
shit.
Jobs
Yeah, that
inspiration coming
minimalist.
out.
You know what I
shit
mean?
right there.
Like I would have one pair of jeans. Like all of my resources and time went back into just trying to do something. You know,
So HOF, or sorry, it's Hoff in my brain. I read it as Hoff.
Yeah.
What is Hall of Fame?
So Hall of Fame is really an events and media business. And
give people a little bit of background, because I think it's easy to look at the following, like of where you guys are today, and not see like there's years of build to get to where you guys are at today. Like, so you don't have to give us every detail of every party, but I think for the people that are listening who may not know the real backstory of it, give people a little bit of context as to what it was, because you came back from the military and it wasn't like, bam, this is the idea, this is going to run, and it was in its fullest form, right? It was an evolution. So give people a little bit of background on what that evolution of HOF really was.
Okay, so I'll try to make this as quick as possible because it is a long story. But at that time, before I left for the Air Force, me and my friends were just very spontaneous and just did whatever the hell we wanted. And so we would go to LA all the time, like just on a whim. Literally, it'd be like a Friday, like, let's go to LA. And so
this is back before gas was $6.
yeah. And so on a trip that I wasn't a part of, actually, one time my friends went down there, ran into by a series of events, ran into Eddie Murphy's son, Christian Murphy, and partied with him for the weekend. And that relationship evolved over time. And Christian Murphy actually started HOF in LA. Yeah, he actually started it. He's the original. Yeah. He started it. So him and his friends, and it was just wild hanging out with them. And we were all 18, 19, and they were driving like $150,000 cars. We were partying in the mansions. We were partying, like Big Sean was there. I mean, it was just a wild time. That was a lot of fun. Yeah. We were just getting after it. And then he started HOF, started throwing parties in LA, and then he asked us basically, hey, do you guys want to be a part of it? But, the Sacramento chapter essentially. And we were like, yeah, let's do it. And Byron actually was the one who really got it going, called our first meeting with like notepads and pens. And that's when I knew, like, okay, I thought we were just throwing parties. Like Byron's got like pens and notepads and shit. Like we're at a meeting, and I was like, oh, he's taking this seriously. And then we started throwing parties around town, and they just really took off. We took it really seriously, like really seriously.
And for people that don't know, like how serious these guys would take it, I'm talking like big ass security guards at the doors. There was a cover charge. There was a bar. Yeah, like you will not see another house party like this in Sacramento. I guarantee it.
Yeah.
And this is all without like an LLC, permits.
Nothing.
Just doing it like a real business, but like not a real business.
Not a real business. We even, like I said, recession was around that time, so there were a lot of foreclosed homes. So we broke into a few of those and threw some parties.
You are calling yourself way out.
Oh yeah, allegedly broke into some homes.
Running power. Oh, this house doesn't have power, so run power from the house next door. I mean,
Your poor mama's heart right now.
I know.
Oh man.
Yeah, we did. We got shut down. Just about every party got shut down early.
So how do you go from like ratchet house party?
Oh no. These are so much better than ratchet house party. No,
classy house party.
These were like
this is the
movie Project X.
I was gonna say this is some Project X.
It's a Project X.
That was what you're based on.
Yeah. Well, that movie was based on us.
Yeah.
When we saw the trailer for that movie, we were like, oh shit, they made a movie about it. We're like, no, seriously, we were like, they must have pulled our footage and like it looked like our parties. That's how crazy they were.
Yeah,
that's so funny.
That's so funny that you said that, because that's immediately what I thought when I saw the trailer. I was like, you put an H on there, like that's it. It's Project H.
Dude, yeah.
So how do you go from those types of parties to like?
So when I got back, we were doing a lot of that before I left, and then when I left to the Air Force, the guys kept it going, and when I got back, actually, so I get kicked out of the Air Force. I get home, and the first HOF party was like a week or two after I got home. They were already planning it. And so like Vinny and Tony and all them, they had a venue walkthrough actually like a week before. So I get home and guys are like, yeah, we have a party coming up. It's in between two warehouses. It's off a floor. And I go to the event walkthrough, and I remember I just stood there as like a fly on the wall. I had no input. I just, just there. And event went off really well. It was one of our best events. I mean, it went till like 1 a.m, shut down by helicopter. Like it was fucking sick. It was tight. It was really cool. Jerts headlined, and like all the homies were headlining. It was a really cool party. And I didn't really have a part in it, in terms of the actual production and execution of it. I was just kind of a fly on the wall, and it's interesting because that party was like a big success, but then right after that party, we didn't really have a next step in mind. Like I remember actually pivotal moment, Tony comes to pick me up, and we go somewhere, and like on the way home, this is probably 4 or 5 months now since we've thrown that party, right? And this is at a time when like there's no social media, there's no like Instagram, like
MySpace.
This is
All word of
MySpace,
mouth.
MySpace and Facebook.
Yeah.
Aging
Early
yourselves, yes.
Facebook.
Yeah.
Really early Facebook.
Yeah, and so it's not like we had some presence. It's like we did these parties and then we went away.
Right.
Did these parties and then we went away, and so now, I mean, almost 6 months had gone by, and basically after that party, the directive was, all right, guys, let's find another warehouse to do this at. Right. And this is at a time when we had no hierarchy, there were no roles and responsibilities. It was like everybody's responsible for everything. There's no role for anyone. And this is where I think I really started to carve out my role. Was on the way home that day, Tony was like, hey man, like that party was really cool 6 months ago, but like no one's found any warehouse since then. Like we've all just kind of been fucking around. And like I remember Tony telling me like, if we don't do something soon, I'm just gonna move to LA and like kind of wipe my hands of this. And I remember thinking like, damn, like this might all go away. You know what I mean? Like we just threw the most successful party we've ever thrown, and like now it just might fizzle into thin air. And
right.
I just remember thinking like, I cannot let that happen. So the next day I went on Craigslist and I just went through typed in warehouse, and I called every single warehouse that had a phone number. And most warehouses are managed by like property management companies and things of that nature. So good luck trying to get them to let you throw an event like this. And I almost gave up. I remember, I'll never forget, I was on like page 6, at like the end of page 6 of just fucking calling. And I had like 2 warm leads, I didn't really get anywhere. And I just remember being like, I almost gave up. I was like, that's it. And then I was like, fuck it. Went to page 7. I think like the second number I called, this guy named Mats Engstrom from Sweden picked up. He had a 45,000 square foot warehouse on 12th and C. He was like, yeah, let's do it.
Didn't even meet you, just on the phone. Yeah.
No, he was like, yeah, I'm interested. Like, sounds interesting. Like, can you come to San Francisco and meet? And, I was like, yeah. So me, Byron, and Tony and Vinny put together this was my first pitch I'd ever been a part of putting together, like a proposal,
How old were you at the time?
We were probably 20.
I was going to say, y'all had to be like 20.
Not even drinking
like 20.
age.
Yeah. Not even drinking age. I had never really put together a pitch or a proposal, and we did. We went down there, we met with him, and he loved it, and we walked away with the deal. And fast forward maybe 3 months from there, we threw the party. It was actually called like March Madness, or it was in March of 2011. And we called it March Madness, but the hashtag was called Game Time. And so the public picked up on it, and the public just started calling it Game Time. So we changed the name of the party to Game Time. Like, fuck it, let's just call it Game Time. And Game Time was just something, a term that we used when we were getting fucked up. Like, yo, it's game time. Like, just fucking drink whatever we're doing. And so that became the title of the party. And it ended up, we had no permits. We did meet with the fire department beforehand, and they were like, yeah, give us $2,500 and we'll let you do it. So we
There's
did.
a lot of exchanging of money to make things happen, is what I'm hearing. Just like make it happen.
Just make it happen.
Just make it happen.
I mean,
And,
that's events in a nutshell right there, though.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't realize how much shit goes on behind the scenes. That's like, oh, this is a little sus, but you know, we make shit happen.
well, we wanted to do it right, but we didn't even know how to do it right.
And I think that that's a great point. There isn't a roadmap for this shit. And in fact, I think Sacramento would rather put barriers in the way of a lot of this shit.
Yeah.
I still remember some of these similar phone calls, similar paths, similar like less grit, because I got to probably like phone call number 2 before I said fuck this. But like, yeah, like there isn't like a clear delineation as to like this is how you do it right.
Yeah.
And nobody, when you're on the phone with these people, like they don't give a fuck. It's almost like they'd be like, yeah, there's a way, but I'm not going to tell you that way. And
Exactly.
I would rather see this thing be shut down, because
It's like
how
unless
dare
you ask the right question, they're not going to give you the answer,
right.
which is
True.
crazy. Because like, how do I know what to ask?
Yeah.
Like if, oh yeah, that's a big pain in the ass. But anyway, so we throw that party. I mean, it was a legendary party. That was when I knew, actually. I mean, we that party got shut down at 10:30. But by then we had like 2,000 people in there.
Yeah.
I mean, it was crazy. Like we were selling tickets at Jagatomi on J Street, which is like a vinyl toy store that used to exist there. And I remember like the day before that party, we released like another 500 tickets at the store. There was a line that morning, and that's when we were like, oh shit, like this is going to be crazy. So, I mean, it's to this day one of the craziest things I've ever been a part of. I mean, there were just kids lined up. We had trash bags of money. We just were throwing money in trash bags. Like, all right, that one's full, throw it. Like it was complete madness, in the best way possible.
Yeah.
And then the fire showed up, and they knew we had paid them a few grand, to help us put this on. And Tony was like fighting with them. Tony was fighting with them like, no, we don't want to shut it down. Like, let us keep going. They wanted us to shut it down. Matt, the owner of the warehouse, the old guy from Sweden, was right there with Tony fighting. He's like, let him keep going.
Hell yeah.
They're just stalling at this point.
Yeah.
Right.
Meanwhile, we have it's all ages, right? So we don't even know. We didn't ID anybody. There are people walking around
Would
with
never fly today.
open beverage.
110%.
Oh no, people walking around with open beverages, Four Locos, fucking Coors Lights, just PBRs, it was
The good old days.
Now that video, I will argue, is probably one of the most legendary Sacramento party videos.
Yeah.
Like everybody, Francis Wang is in that video. Like
You're calling other people out now.
turning up. Yeah, I'm calling you
Oh,
out.
I mean,
Francis.
that's in there. That was
Mike
real life
Diamond,
shit.
everybody's in that
Real
video
life.
from that era. Everybody's in there. It's pretty epic. But that got shut down. We got fined $1,000 by the city, which was funny.
So you're like, fine, I've got a cash.
Got a
We got a
bag
bag
of
full of
cash.
cash. We'll
Yeah.
just drop that off.
But that was when I knew, hey, we have something here. I don't know what, but we're doing something right. Like we just did this many people. We sold this many tickets. Like we got to figure out how to do this. So I'll kind of wrap up with basically just, I think that was 2011, and then 2012 we threw a few more parties, and they weren't as big. We threw an end of the world party in 2012 because that's when the world was going to end.
Yeah.
2013 we did a last great summer party on the river, all really cool events. And then 2014 is when I sat everybody down, and I was just like, yo, we're in this hamster wheel of doing all these events, and we're not making any money. We're not making any money. We're doing these events, and there are 1,000 people, 2,000 people, 4,000, whatever it may be, but they're illegal. We're not permitted. We're now at this point, we're 22, 23.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting
Still young.
older.
Yeah.
And it's guys, we cannot keep doing this
Right.
illegal stuff. So we actually took 2014 off and just said, hey, we're not going to do any events in 2014. We're just going to support Fornati and other people in the city who are doing events, and let's just support them, and let's just take a year off to learn how to do this correct. And that's when I met a gentleman by the name of John Javidon. He became a mentor of mine and really the entire team, and he runs a really successful event in Roseville on Mother's Day. It's a family friendly event. He does 30,000 people.
Wow.
And so he's a real professional.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, actually 2014, all 2014, we supported everybody else. And then I took a meeting with every single person in the city that I respected and that I looked at, kind of people that were where I wanted to go. So unseen heroes, Maritza and Rashawn, Michael Hargis from Lowbrow and the TBD Fest, and even Trisha from like R Street, and John Javidon. And I literally, dude, any event that popped up on Facebook, I would reached out to that event producer and I was like, yo, my name's Damian. Love to take you to coffee. Love to take you to lunch and just pick your brain. Yep. And I did that all year. I just learned and I just introduced myself, and I met with these people, listened to them for 30 minutes to an hour. And then at the end, I'd offer to work for free. Like, hey, if you need help,
write that down.
Yeah.
If you need help, like, I'm down. I'll pass out flyers. I'll help promote through my little thing. They didn't even know what HOF was at the time. They're just like, these are older people. So I, was coming in with just like, hey, I'm down to work for free. I'm down to just learn. And I also have this little thing over here. We can help push your message a little bit. And that was 2014. And then 2015, John Javidon, he just kept calling me and he was like, hey man, have you figured it out yet? Have you guys
What a good mentor.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was like, no. And I kept putting him off. And then finally he was like, hey, I want to help you put on HOF Day, HOF Day, your guys' first festival. Yeah. He's like, I got a place in West Sacramento. They're down. I'm talking to the city and they love this kind of event. And so he held my hand through that process of producing our first ever permitted event. And it was a struggle because working with him and working with the city of West Sacramento, it became clear that this had to be a daytime event. Mm-hmm. Like this had to be over by 10, 11 o'clock. Normally we're not getting started until that time.
Right.
So Tony and everybody was like, nah, day party. Like who's going to come to that? And I did I'm like, well, look at Coachella. They end at 11 o'clock. Like every major, when I started to get familiar with the rules and how things work, I'm like, the only way we can do this legally, guys, is if we do it during the day. I don't know what to tell you. We can't do an all-night rager like we're used to doing.
Now, I don't mind a little bit of day. I actually prefer a little bit of daydreaming.
Day fade.
Being at home by 11 sounds amazing.
So at that age, though, you're talking to 21, 22-year-olds, it was like, that sounds whack. Anyway, it was clearly our only path. So John held our hand through that. We ended up doing a HOF Day in 2015, 2016, and 2017. And the 2017 version was in Old Sacramento, which was my real sort of college, I would say, on events. And then, and to go back to your original, like, how did I get started in this? Like, basically what I saw for myself at 19, 20, as I was kind of like mapping all of this in my head and trying to learn, like, what I want to do. A lot of my friends were in college, going to college at the time, and they're getting their degrees. For me, I knew school was like, and I can always go back to school and accomplish that, but like...
You can still go back to school.
I can still go back.
Yeah.
But what I saw was that like I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do or where I was going to fit or what the business was going to be that I was going to build. But I knew that by producing events like this, that at the end of it, even if I don't make any money, I have relationships to put on an event like that, you're working with 40, 50, 60 different entities, right? From the city to fire to police to security guards to production teams to artists to managers to food vendors. Yeah. Your Rolodex amplifies tenfold just by doing one event. Right. Because you've now introduced yourself and worked with 50, 60 different businesses or entities. And so in my mind, I was like, okay, even if I don't make any money, I'm 24. I don't need money. I need a pair of jeans and like a t-shirt and a roof over my head. And like, but these relationships, if on the back end of this, like I know the head of the fire department, and I know the chief of police, and I know the head of permitting and health, and I know how to do this, like that to me is worth more than any college class is going to give me.
Absolutely.
That was what really propelled me down that path of like of event production and just really buying into it. And I also thought like, even if this HOF thing doesn't work out, everything is an event. Everything is an event. Every company has events. An NBA game is an event. Apple has events. Google has events. Like, who doesn't have an event? So even if this doesn't work out, hey, I'm 23, 24, 25, I'm building up a resume, I'm building up a Rolodex, and I can always then use this to go get a job and be Apple's in-house event production guy. Like, if that's where this leads.
You have such an optimistic view on life. And it's so good because I feel like you're okay with the learning process of everything.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Like, the learning, it's not lost on you. And I think a lot of people, and I got to see so many different characters and egos because our paths were like this. I think one of the last events that I threw was with you guys at VFW Hall right up over here.
Oh my God, that was a good one.
That was a good one.
Was that the Halloween?
That was the Halloween
Oh,
one.
yeah.
Yeah, still the craziest ratio I've ever seen. I've never thrown a Halloween party where it was way more women to men.
So
I've
many
never
women.
seen that
I'm
as
still
an
seeing
issue.
some of those costumes today.
You know?
God, I could see it.
But I chose the path of least resistance. Like, I was like, fuck this is too much. I'm tired of the headache, but I didn't want to like leave nightlife. So I went to the club route, but you guys were willing to grow, evolve, and still forge a path where other people weren't making a path for you. And I think that's always something that I've been like really admired about you and just HOF at large is like the willingness to persist and to own who you guys were and not change because admittedly, I had to evolve into someone else to appease what that market was inside of nightlife, inside of a venue. Way different scene than it is today with what you guys are doing, and you guys have always owned that, and I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, we definitely owned it.
Yeah.
We definitely
I don't
owned
think
it.
your culture has been the same for the past 10 years.
If you look back at some of those party videos that we were like the promotional videos from back then, I mean, we have like ecstasy pills falling from the sky. Like
Very 2010
like-
of you.
Right?
like it's crazy what we were emboldened to just do, and we
Yeah.
were really like, yeah, we owned it. That whole attitude and life, like it was crazy.
So where does the line between HOF and Yellow Brick Group come in?
Yeah.
Because are you still, you're part of both of those things right now, right? As a owner operator, or how would you describe, I know it's hard, like trash strategist, owner operator, how would you describe your like position or title in both of those companies?
Yeah. We started a Yellow Brick Group in 2018.
We are you and
Me and my partners,
Okay.
Curtis and Sean. Actually, I was the minority partner in it. Sean and Curtis are two. You know them. They were working in parallel to HUF this entire time, doing their own things. Curtis is a wizard in terms of design and website development. He's just like a nerd on that
and
side
I'm a
of
super
things.
fan of Yellow Brick Group. Like when you guys used to send out stickers, like I
Yeah.
used to get those in the mail.
Yeah. Sean is a great creative mind, marketing guy. Both of them have stacked resumes, like each of them. Sean helped manage DeMarcus Cousins when he was here. Everything DeMarcus would drop from a clothing perspective, Sean was the kind of mind behind that. Cloud9 Clothing was Sean as well.
Yep. Man, we're opening up the vault right now. My brain
Yeah,
is just
he's
like,
got a stacked resume. So does Curtis. So the three of us, basically what happened was after 2017, we threw our last Hoff Day in old Sacramento, and it went really well. But again, we didn't really make any money, and I was just at a point where I'm like, fuck, dude, like, I've tried everything. I've put everything into this. By now we're, 27, 26, 27, and I just felt like, man, maybe it's time for something new. I just don't know what that is. And I ran into Sean in the parking lot of the Warehouse Artist Lofts where he lives, and he was kind of in the same space, and Curtis was in the same space of just like, we're all the same age. Me and Sean actually went to middle school and high school together. So, we go back. And so we said, hey, let's just put our minds together and create something. So we created Yellow Brick Group. And then, and at this time, I should also say is when, again, HOF up until this point, we were just doing these like once a year, twice a year, really large parties, but there was no consistent income. But after that last Hoff Day in 2017, nightlife started to knock on our door. And
Yep.
so these different clubs and venues started to say, hey, like, all right, you guys want to bring some of that to our door, our venue. And so in a weird serendipitous way, consistent money did start to flow through HOF at this time because nightlife picked up.
Yep.
And we worked from 2018 to like 2019, we worked every bar in Sacramento, Bar West, Vanguard, like Social, every bar club you can think of in town we worked. They were very limited in terms of what they would allow us to do, typically just giving us like a Saturday night or a Friday night to promote. But we were like, hey, man, we could do way more than this. Like, we've been popping in the streets for years. Now we're trying to get, And so slowly that started to pick up. And then in 2019 is when Tiger arrived and that opportunity came. And like consistent good money really started to flow through HOF. But that was not really like, it couldn't really see that coming at the time. And so I was in a space trying to figure it out. Again, me, Curtis, Sean just said, hey, let's just put our heads together and like start an agency and see what happens. And we started Yellowbird Group and things started to just happen. And we just worked hard and, we made no money for the first like 6 months. It was just,
Not a bad thing.
Yeah, we would like maybe the first year.
You've been doing
right?
that for like 9 years already. So 6
Yeah,
months wasn't that bad.
I'm still like, I'm
Been
okay
break
with
even for the past 9 years. Yeah, no big deal.
still making no money. But on my time, I still had time. I was only 27, 26, like gave myself until 30. So, we started getting after it. And within the first 6 months, I remember me and Sean would like sit right next to each other. Curtis would be in the other room. And one day, Sean, he's half Asian, and so he's traveled the world quite a bit, and he became just enamored with night markets. And was like, he came back from a trip and was like, we were just sitting there one day, and he was like, hey, like, why don't we have a night market in Sacramento? And we started to pull on that thread, did our research, and said like, well, there are night markets in the country. They do exist. Miami has one, Portland has one, Austin has one, LA has one. Like, this could work. And then from an event production standpoint, I was like, dude, we could do this. Like, this is easy. Like, from the world that I come from, I'm like dealing with artists and green rooms and stages and
writers.
I'm like,
and
I'm like, let me get this straight, Sean. We're talking about just shutting down a street and like putting food trucks there. Like, that's it.
Say less.
Like, yeah, like that's the idea for the most part. And so I think like that 2018, we opened our doors January 1st, and then that September we did the first night market. And that June we did the first night market. So like we opened up our doors, we're making no money, and we decided to throw a night market. And we were anticipating like 1,000, 2,000 people maybe. The idea was just like, hey, let's just put food trucks in front of the Warehouse Artist Lofts on a Saturday night and invite our friends and people we know and see what happens. And that's what we did. And 12,000 people showed up.
I always forget that detail.
I know.
12,000 people showed up. And so we always say we survived that event. I mean, It was fucking crazy. Ran out of everything and almost died, but we survived. And then we did it again 3 months later, 2019. We obviously made no money on this. Did it again, and 3 months later, and 28,000 people showed up. We took an additional block this time. We said, okay, let's take one more block. So we had 2 blocks now. 28,000 people showed up, and so again, we ran out of everything. We made no money, and it's a completely free event.
Yeah.
Like, there's no paying to get in. There's no, we're not even checking people. We're just like, pull up. Did almost 30,000 people, and then we did it again. And so we were like, okay, like that was cool. And then
We may be onto something here.
well,
You
we're
can
onto
tell
something.
that the demand for it was there.
Right.
Yeah,
Our city needed something.
it was still a shock too. Like, we still we're like, did that happen? And people we would talk to that didn't go, we'd be like, oh, we heard about it, but was it really that many people? And we'd be like, yeah. We were like having to convince people that it actually happened, including
It was just a fever
ourselves to a
dream.
degree. Yeah. And then we put it together again in 2019, and we did over 50,000 people. This time we took up like 6-7 blocks and that whole thing, and did like 50,000 people at
And
that
then
one.
COVID happened, and then you guys came back last year.
Yeah, and
Last year was the
then
big one.
2020 COVID, and so we put it on pause. Brought our first one back We didn't do one.
2022.
Did we do 2022?
I don't
No, we
remember.
didn't. No, this was our.
I think it was 23.
I think this was our first year back. Yeah, this was our first year back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we bought it back this year, and it did really well again. So, you know, that's thing about Yellow Brick Group is it's really an agency for client work. We didn't had no intention of like building this separate thing.
A giant culture.
Yeah, and doing this whole thing. I mean, you talk to Sean, and he'll tell you that he always kind of knew, like, it was, you know. So, but yeah, so that's kind of the track.
Yeah.
How I got here. Yeah.
What's on the horizon for you guys? Because you guys have a very marked history for taking the lumps and continuing to learn. But what do you have your sights on next?
Oh man, that's a really good question. I think, you know, there's a few in-house things that you want to get taken care of and make sure that the ship that you built is continuing to sail and that it's consistent and that like all the small things that you may have overlooked while building it get cleaned up from an insurance perspective, just a legal perspective, HR. We have 8 employees at Yellow Brick Group, like full-time employees. So dealing with that and HR and payroll, and you're dealing with all these different sort of elements that aren't as sexy, you know, but they help keep the business going. So it's been a lot of that for the last year, I would say. But moving forward, I mean, the night market is something that we want to build out. We would love to do 2 a year here in Sacramento.
I would love to. I think our city could really do with 2 a year because I bet you it improves the economy here and it gives a lot more attention. Like I went to the one this year and I spent money willy-nilly just because I felt so honored to like give to small businesses and I don't care how much this dress costs and let me have fun, and it was a good environment.
Yeah, how was your experience? Was it like,
I went early, first of all.
smart?
And I got a free ticket and I think I gave a donation to cheers to you.
Oh my God, thank
but
you.
it was a really good event. I brought my daughter.
Oh, nice.
So as a kid, she had a good time, just like understanding what our culture really looks like in Sacramento, getting to try different foods, getting to see different people. I think that was really important. You involved Casa, which was really nice. And they have their own like multicultural situation there, but a 10 out of 10 event. Yeah.
Yeah. And we showed up late. So that was an experience to get in and see these lines that are massive, but that's exactly what happens when you come late.
Yeah.
But it was interesting because our niece was like, I want to go to this thing. And then we have friends that are older that are like, oh, we're going to this thing. And so just seeing the depth of people that were going to this event was like, wow, this is real life shit. And I'm homies with the guys that put this on. This is wild.
It is wild, the demo. I love seeing kids just out there, like just getting lost in the environment.
Yeah.
We've all had those moments when we were kids and you're out at some event and it's a real bonding moment, you know, for the city and like all the people that, you know, attend. So
Congrats.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you guys for coming and donating.
Yeah. I mean, it was fun. I was like, I know him. I'm like,
Oh my
it's
God.
a free ticket.
It was, I mean, you guys probably know this, like Sacramento and ticket sales is just like such last minute, right?
Yeah.
So like going into the week of the event, I think we had sold nowhere near our goal. Like we were like, what the fuck, man? Like, fuck, we're going to lose money again. I've been losing money for so long. But I think like the 3 or 4 days leading up, I mean, tickets just skyrocketed. Yeah. Then we sold out, and then people were in line. I was just like, okay, cool, it's going well. So,
the events always feel like they're going to be ass up until about 48 hours before doors open. Yeah. You're like, oh, maybe I got something here.
Like, it's working. Yeah.
So did you meet your goal? You hit 30 and you said, we're going to keep doing this?
Yeah. We hit our goal. Financially, this is the most successful event I've ever been a part of. We sold out of tickets, so we made some good money there. All of our sponsors were happy.
This is the first year you sold tickets, so just like that's a milestone in itself.
Oh my God. It's really difficult to build an event that people will buy tickets to consistently, and it's tough. So to be a part of that, I mean, and even during, like, I remember during, like, the HOF days when we were really in that party scene, I remember thinking, like, man, this is fun and all, it's great, but, like, there's so much risk, and I'm just dealing with people who are on drugs and drunk and throwing up and like fighting and all this shit. I just want to be a part of an event that's like family friendly and like that's cool and chill, and like had no idea that the night market would turn into that, but you just never know, and it did, and I'm really grateful to be a part of it.
I think that's a good one to start to wrap it up, is the idea of persistence, man, and give yourself a longer timeline, because it's easy to look at someone else and think like, damn, they're doing better, or they're doing something, like, why don't I have that? But if you just keep your head down and grind, you never know where it leads. Like, I still shock myself, like, damn, I was just a guy taking pictures of drunk chicks at the fucking club. Like, how did this evolve into this, like, that I could sit down and do this? And, like, this is wild to me. So I would say anyone that's listening that's figuring it out,
or the people in the room,
stay persistent. Stay persistent. Yeah, and the people in the room here, which is what I was going to say. I'm going to open it up and see if there's any questions from our live audience. The question was, what's a Rolodex? And he's the probably the youngest person in the room. So
yeah, that's a serious question, huh?
Yeah.
Just your network, you know, it's your, I mean, there's an actual physical product thing called a Rolodex just has all your business cards that you've gotten throughout the year or whatever it may be that you just stack. And, you know, you can go back into that deck of business cards and reach out to people that you've met and reconnect. And yeah, I think in today's world, it's more so your phone book or your Instagram following or whatever it may be. But overall, the network that you can dive into when you have a challenge that you're dealing with.
Right.
Ask anything.
Anything else? Anybody? Awesome. I got a question for you. If you could go back and do it all over again, would you change anything?
I don't think so. There's nothing I can point to change. You know, you always look back and I could have. Yeah, it's just there's certain things you I mean, yeah, sure. If the question really is, if you went back in time and had all the knowings that you have today, would you do something differently? And I think the answer is yes, right? Like, if I had all the info that I have now,
I'd be like, buy Bitcoin. Don't listen to your mom. Buy Bitcoin.
I would have bought Bitcoin and I'd be out of here. I'd be in Bahamas right now. But no, I mean, you know, the one thing I'll say, you know, about like that being a hustler or being a business person or just being in a high risk kind of life, is just don't crap out. That was my rule. That was my only rule in my 20s. It was like, try everything and just don't crap out. Like, don't go bankrupt.
Right.
We've seen so many. The thing about business is that once you really get into it, you realize like, oh, there's no there's no there is a referee to a degree, like the lawyers and the city and the cops.
Right.
Like,
You're
specifically cops.
There are referees, but like, you can get away with shit for a while,
right?
Before you get caught or whatever. There are liberties that you can take. There are things you can do to cheat the system. There are ways to get to get money quickly in the world of business, and there are even, it's like such a scary place to be sometimes, because you can get people to buy into your idea, invest $100,000 with you or $500,000 or $1 million or whatever it may be, or you have this idea that you think is going to take off, and so you put all your eggs into it and all your money and everything into it, and then it doesn't work out, and now you are in this deficit in terms of money and finances. So to pull off your next idea is going to be twice as hard. And not only that, if you tarnished your reputation in any way and you're not paying people back, or you got, like, literally, we all know those, especially in the nightlife party promoting business, there are tons of people walking around with debt on their head and people just looking for them. Right. And getting into business is scary, because you can get yourself into some deep shit if you're not careful.
Right.
And I was at least smart enough to know, like, during all those parties when we were losing money and when we weren't, whatever, I had always in my mind a calculation running of like, okay, at the most on this party that we're about to throw, most we'll lose is $10,000.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Right. I'd like have that in my mind. And like, this is worst case scenario. And if I have to raise $10,000, can I do it? Yeah, I probably get maybe 3 from my mom, maybe someone from here. Like, I already had that in my mind of like where I would need to go to kind of fill that deficit. And so I always took calculated risks. Like, it was always a calculation. It was never, we never threw a party so big that if it failed, we can't show our faces for 2 years.
Right,
You know what I mean? It was like, we might lose 20 grand, but like, there's 4 of us. We can figure it out. Like, 20 grand's not that crazy. So it was just being calculated. If you're in your 20s, I would just say take as many risks as possible. I mean, even in your 30s, I don't think it really ends, but like at a certain point, you have to mitigate risks. But I would say in your 20s, for the most part, that was my strategy. Just take as many chances as you can. Be calculated, and just don't crap out. Stay in the game. Stay in the game. That was my biggest thing in my 20s. Stay in the game and learn as much as you can.
That's awesome. Well, thanks, Damian.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate you.
Appreciate it.
Cool.
And thank you all for joining.
Yeah, thanks for coming.